All right. It's showing that it's recording on my end.
Yeah.
You got that too?
Yeah, I do.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thanks for joining me, man.
You got it.
So, Gluten-Free EDC here, guys. I'm Brian, your gluten-sensitive representative. Today, I'm doing a bit of a new thing. I'm going to try this streaming thing. I talked to some other YouTubers to help me out make it happen, but this is the first go, so bear with me, bear with us. Today, I have my buddy Mitch. He's a good friend. He's Carnivore EDC on Instagram. Check him out. He's got some fantastic pictures. And yeah, Mitch, super glad to have you on, man. I think the purpose for today is we're going to kind of go through your collection. We're going to kind of go through just some tidbits about how you've collected in the past, how you collect now, and just a quick backstory. So Mitch and I actually met at Blade Show 2022. He won a lotto knife at Blade Show, which was super cool. And I had won an auction knife, both of which were from David Lespect, a maker that I've loved and Mitch has come to love as well, which we'll dive into a little down the road. But yeah, so we'll go into all that. And Mitch and I met essentially like in the parking lot of Blade Show, if I recall.
Yeah.
I was looking at someone's car, someone's knives in the back of their car, and Mitch walked by and I recognized his face. I'm like, yo, you won that badass Lespect in Ironwood, if I recall. Yeah. So yeah, really cool. So yeah, thanks, Mitch, for joining in, man. How you doing, dude?
Dude, I'm excited about this conversation. You know, it's one of those things where you kind of look at it and, you know, what's a folding piece of steel in a titanium frame? It's like sort of boring, but honestly, like there's so much detail, so much interesting, not just aesthetics, but you want to talk about functional art. You want to talk about utilitarian. There are a lot of aspects. And one of the big aspects, I think, is the community. I think it's very difficult to separate the community from this hobby. And I think that's really what drives people. I'll put it this way, it's definitely what drove me in, you know? So yeah, when I was walking and I saw you and that, you know, checking out some knives in the guy's car, I was like, we just started talking just randomly. It was like, just, hey man, I think you said, hey, congratulations on the win. I'm like, dude, thanks. And it just like one thing went to another. The next thing we were like 45 minutes in the freaking parking lot, like hot in Atlanta, you know, it's like, dude, this is cool. You know, like this is what it's all about. So it was amazing. Honestly, it was really cool to connect that way.
That was a cool way to meet. And just, yeah, it totally was random. And, you know, we built the friendship out of that, right? Like we love knives and, you know, Mitch, I know, is a family man. I'm a family man. We got our families. We won't dive too much into that. But yeah, so, you know, that's where the gray hairs come from. I think Mitch might have a few more than me, but you know,
I'll get a beard. It's everywhere, man. Yeah.
Well, I can't.
I wish it was wisdom, but I can't say it is.
It only grows here, and then like random stubble.
Yeah.
So if I don't shave that off, I look like a madman. So I actually haven't shaved for a minute, but
it's all right.
yeah, dude. And my kids hate when I have anything. Yeah. They hate it. Like they're just like, Daddy. And like my 1-year-old, she's all like handsy and like can't speak yet. So she like as soon as I go to kiss her, she's like,
get away from me. You're tickling me. Yeah. Tickling my cheeks. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. I say that they're allergic to me because when I kiss them, like they'll get like all red all over their cheeks and all.
Yeah.
I know it's really because of the facial hair, but like, what little I have, crazy. But anyway, back to the knives. So obviously, I know, you know, you're a collector of folding knives, but I guess, do you actually carry your knives? And just so everyone knows, Mitch and I talk a ton. Like, maybe I know the answers to some of this, but I want like this for everyone else. So yeah, Mitch, do you actually carry a knife, and how do you carry it?
I'm a weirdo. So like I even carry a knife when I don't need to carry a knife. It's like a little bit ridiculous. Like if I'm going down and I need to get a glass of water at night, it's like, what am I going to carry? You know, it's kind of silly, but, you know, honestly, it's like, it's kind of cool. You know, I always,
It's
as part
definitely
of, you know what I mean? Yeah. As part of the full EDC, I mean, so yeah, I definitely carry my knives. With me personally, I carry, all of my knives, and I use every single knife, no matter how expensive it is. Now, the question of how much do I use it, that's a question, right? So like aces in their places, or I heard someone say, you want to make sure to put the bird in the tree and the fish in the sea, right? So it has to make sense. So I'm probably not going to, you know, hacksaw, you know, a bush in the backyard with my Lispect. Probably not going to happen. But I am using my Lispect for what its intended purpose is. So I do that with all of my knives. Every single knife I've ever owned has been used. So, but yeah. So anyway, as far as how do I carry, I always do clip. I'm gonna pull out this little fellow here. This is not exactly the pride and joy of my collection, but it's a beautiful example. I always have a clip on mine. So, and I usually like to do tip up carry. This is, you know, I guess kind of the standard community carry. That's how it seems to be the most popular way, but that's the way I do it. And that's really, if it's an option, right?
Yeah.
If it's an option, correct. And it's exclusively the way that I carry, exclusively. I have scratched a couple clips that way. And I look at it as adding character to the knife. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't even necessarily go and like instantly try to clean it up or whatever. I just look at it as like adding character to the knife. But that's the way I do it.
I think it's taken me a long time to kind of get there. So for the longest time, I've loved stone-washed everything because it hides scratches.
Yeah.
Lately, I've decided that I'm going to allow scratches on everything. And honestly, if I have a knife on me, I'm willing to use it for whatever task is at hand. Like, yeah, like if someone needs like a staple pried out of like a 2x4 or something, the knife isn't the tool for that anyway. So I don't feel bad not whipping that out, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, if like my life depended on that situation, the knife is what it is. So you do clip in your pocket. Are you right-handed, left-handed?
Right-handed. Yeah.
Right-handed. So are you actually throwing it into your right pocket?
Yeah.
And do you actually carry it like on the edge of like the far side of that pocket then, if that makes sense?
The bottom right, the bottom edge of it. Absolutely. I have so I have a full EDC carry that I always do. So I have my pen, I'm into Fellhalter. I have my torch, which I'm into Okluma. So I've got an Okluma in my back left pocket. Yeah, I love Okluma, dude. It's insanely good.
Dude, it's so good.
It is. It's nuts. And
now, real quick, the Okluma, yours is
brass.
Brass. You mind holding that up again?
Yeah.
Let's see that. Oh, dude, so good.
Yeah, I love it. And then I got my Fellhalter.
Is it really building a patina? Ah, the brass duo.
Yeah.
Dude, and like premium of each thing that you could have, like torch.
Yeah.
And, like, come on.
So yeah, it is absolutely building a patina. So I've had copper pens. I've never had a copper torch, but my copper pens, dude, they build a patina super quick, reasonably quick, I should say. This one is a slow patina, but it is absolutely doing a patina, and I actually like it more personally.
I imagine it's slow because of the finish that he puts on there. Yeah, it looks like he's doing maybe a Zerblast, but if not a Zerblast, like a some sort of bead blast.
Yeah.
So I imagine like just there's less pores.
Yeah.
So the patina can just only occur so quick because there's not much room for the moisture to cling on. My dumb take on it, but yeah.
Well, I think that's true. And also, if I'm not mistaken, I think that brass is 30% copper. I think 30% of brass material is copper. I could be wrong on that number, but it's something like that. So I think it might patina at 30% of the rate of copper, not specifically that number, but something like that. So I think that there's a degraded, half-life.
Well, that's important to remember that, like, with all the things, they're alloys, right? Like, some sort of alloy. Like, there's something else incorporated. Like, you look at the crazy blade steels we have.
Yeah.
They're insane, but they're all chemical mixtures of a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
Titanium, like how pure is that titanium? What grade is it? And then it goes with brass especially. Like, so no, that's
and the other thing I like about the brass situation, especially when it comes to a torch, is when you kind of go back to history, what did people use brass for? Candlesticks.
Right?
So
were they
here's a
swords and
brass,
shields?
yeah, like you got your brass candlestick is a very common situation. I got one downstairs. So this is a modern candlestick.
Yeah, and I know brass is like, because of the copper content, is good because it somehow kind of kills microbes.
Yeah.
Or bacteria or something.
Yeah.
I know like in Rome they would
pH. Yeah.
drink more often out of a
Brass
copper cup or copper, not kettle, but whatever, to like a carafe, to hold the water, because it would actually cleanse the water. It would sanitize the water. Pretty wild. I could go crazy into Rome stuff. I've been super into the one book from Marcus Aurelius. But anyway, Stoicism, right? Like it's such a unique thing to read about.
Just don't take a knife when you go to Rome. don't take it with you on the plane or anything. Obviously, you don't want to do that.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Are knives legal there? Or?
No, I don't know. So I've taken them. So you can put a lot in your checked luggage, right? So I've put them in my checked luggage before, and I've but probably was not the best idea to do that. So I got away with it.
Was it a more budget knife, or was it like one of your customs?
Had a couple staccatos. I'm sorry, Spydercos, a couple Spydercos that I took with me. One was the Civilian, which if anybody knows that knife, it's like a 4-inch reverse S, fully serrated lockback knife. So it's a little bit intimidating. And then I also had another one that was more of a karambit. Carahawk, I think is what it was called. I think it was a Carahawk. So I had a freaking Carahawk and a Civilian.
The karambit's the one with the ring.
Yeah. And then it had a little hook. So then when you pull out of your pocket, the thing's popped open. So like you pull it out of your pocket and it does that instantly, but you're holding it like this. So it's going to be kind of difficult to convince somebody that I'm going to open up cardboard boxes with that. No one needs to open up cardboard boxes at that speed. It's like not life and death there. It's like you don't need to do that.
Definitely a little scarier. No, so that's cool. So you carry them. I'm doing the same. I'm 99% of the time I got a knife in my pocket. When I'm working from home, I have one in my pocket, but I also have like 10 strewn out across my desk.
Yeah.
So they're kind of like everywhere. And then behind me, I have like a knife box that I've got loaded up. So how do you, when you're not carrying your knives, do you have a storage system? Where are you throwing these knives when they're not in your pocket?
So when they're not in my pocket, I'm usually putting them in one of those pelican-looking cases, but it's not a pelican. It's actually right here. It's one of these guys.
Nice.
Yep.
The nice little like custom foam inserts there.
Yeah, like, exactly.
Exactly.
It just makes sense. And the other cool thing about that is if I'm traveling or something, I can just lock it up, take it with me if I want to. And it's also, if I want to lock it away from the kids, not that that's a problem, but it can be done if it needs to happen. The other thing is it's sealed. So I know you and I were talking about like with some of the blade steels, or maybe not even that big of a deal, but the moisture issue, I could address that. Like you seal it, you put some of those packets in there, silica packets or whatever, and you have a little bit more control at least over the micro environment of where the knives are. So,
definitely. In my case, I have them as well. Just in my like knife box. Yeah. It's a hinged deal, and I probably have like 10 silica packets in there. Like I try and switch them out. So like my wife knows anytime she gets them in the mail with something, or if I get one, I just switch them out. I throw the old ones out and I kind of keep replenishing, keep the rotation going.
Yeah.
So it's important. Like
it is.
Steels are usually fairly corrosion resistant nowadays, but there's still like super steels where they're more prone to rust. Are you in a humid environment? Like, is that something like you're truly concerned about?
Well, I mean, I live in Tennessee, so we're around 50 to 70% humidity, generally speaking. That's kind of
Okay.
the range. We've hit 100 before. It's not like, Myrtle Beach or anything. We're not like right off the beach with salt, and all that stuff. But,
Yeah.
generally the steels that I have are not very high on the corrosion index. So I'm generally pretty good. So I probably drop one or two silica packets in there, and I'm generally speaking pretty okay. Hasn't really been a big issue for me, but it's an option if it needs to, if it needs to be
I'm in
considered.
PA, and it's so humid here all the time, and for me, it's been a constant battle. I do have knives with like my one was spec with the Hamon.
Yeah.
And it's WC steel that rusts by looking at it sideways. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so generally I prefer more stainless options, but I'll get rust on.
Yeah, I agree.
Anything.
Absolutely true. Yeah.
So cool. So you said you'll kind of use your knives for anything and everything, whatever reasonable task is on the plate, you'll kind of using it. Do you base what you carry off of what you assume you're going to be cutting for the day?
Yeah, I usually do. So the one that gets carried the most is going to be this guy right here. This is I'm constantly posting pictures of this thing. I don't know if it can be seen, but it's a space coral carbon fiber. Backspacer.
It's hard to make out. For everyone else, we're restrained to 720p because, just at the moment. But that actually is helping. You can kind of make out the space coral aspect.
So there's a lot of detail in there that I absolutely love. But the cool thing about it is sometimes it's kind of hard to tell. So you kind of have to know what it is to know what it is. But the cool thing about it is it's a synthetic material, and the blade itself is RWL34. I really love this knife. I love carbon fiber. I love the size of it. And the action's incredible. It's super smooth. The deployment's amazing. Didn't mean to go straight into this specific knife, but this is basically the one that I like 90% of the days that I'm wearing a knife, this is probably the one. And it's because I don't have to worry about, like, ironwood's amazing. I love the look so much. I just love it. But the problem is I don't want it to darken. In my situation, I like it the way it is. Yeah. So it's so easy to dump this guy in because, number one, it's just absolutely amazing. And number two, I don't have to worry about synthetic material going crazy. It's not going to change. I have a little bit more time with this one. So I forget if I told you. Yeah.
Little kind of plug Axe Wax. Sorry, the lighting is awful. Axe Wax. This stuff works fantastic. For that ironwood, you could throw it on there and that'll help protect it. Yeah. But I totally get it. The ironwood one that I used to have, that one was incredibly dark. So I get it. Yeah. If I recall, your ironwood one is the best piece of ironwood, man. So I understand wanting to.
It's like, I like it.
Yeah, dude, that's
what I mean? I like it, and I want to kind of keep it. Even if I turn off the light, you can still really make out the look of it. Yeah, and when you get some sun on it, it's beautiful. I mean, I like it. I personally like it. So.
Oh yeah. And for everyone else, at the end of this, I'm going to go through. Well, if you make it to the end, I'm going to be going through Mitch's Carnivore EDC Instagram, and we'll go through some of his pictures. I'll make sure to drop it in the description too, so you can go follow that link, see his Instagram. It's awesome. Check it out. Way better pictures, way better quality than this stream. This is more just for the audio factor, right? So this is like a podcast, if nothing else.
Good community, though. It's good community interaction. It's great conversation, and that's half of it. It's half of this community, It
really is.
Yeah.
And so just for everyone, I know, Mitch, you're big into the Instagram. You're on there fairly frequently. Any other social media that you utilize with the knives?
It's pretty much Instagram. Instagram seems to be the go-to. I think a lot of the knife community drives that. Oh, yeah. I haven't really set anything up with Facebook or anything else, but it's a great way to document my journey. And honestly, it's a journey that's been going on for a while, even before Instagram. So some of the pictures I'm posting are actually me documenting my past.
Oh yeah.
Not just my present as well. You know,
I'm doing the same. A lot of people assume that the videos that I post, they're not always my knife. I try to state that up front. But then on top of that, I've recorded a bunch of videos even before I knew I wanted to make this specific YouTube channel. So a lot of the knives I don't own anymore, or you know, I'll make the video the day that I sold it or something. Like I'm like, oh, never got a video of this thing. So yeah. So you said tasks, kind of looping back to what you're using them for. What is like the general task that you're going to face day to day? Is it like Amazon boxes? Is it, you know, I know you got the kids. So take me through like your typical knife use.
Well, I'm a really heavy user. I cut open a lot of Amazon boxes. That's pretty much what I do.
Yeah, man. Well, and they're going to scratch it up. If you're, there's opening up an Amazon box, and then there's breaking down the cardboard.
Yeah. I do more breaking down the cardboard is what I typically do. So I used to have, oh my gosh, it was such a great one. I think Chris Palenquist, I think that's how you say his name, ended up getting it. It's a mini green G10 less spec. It's like a 2.6-inch blade. The thing's a gem. Amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I let it go recently, and I'm glad it went to someone who appreciates it. That was my go-to cut down the damn boxes knife, and you could tell it on the blade. And the more I cut down boxes, the better that blade got. I just loved it. One thing I do for sure is I do the it's not really the strop, but that metal strop. I forget what they call those things. I do that.
Honing rod?
Yeah. The honing rod. Right. Exactly. So I do that very religiously. If I'm going to, I think you actually mentioned it on your channel with one of the couple of the less specs. You're like, you know, some of the customs, you want to make sure to use that. And I agree 100%. Like that is very much what I use. I don't really need to sharpen my knives too much because I'm very religious, especially with my customs when I'm using them. That's what I'm going to use very, very religiously. But it's kept the edge on very well. And that knife was the one that cut. I mean, I must have cut, I don't know. I mean, literally 500 boxes maybe during the use of it. Like literally.
Yeah. Especially nowadays when we're getting Amazon at least once a week, right?
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
One of my questions I'm going to jump into was, do you sharpen knives? So obviously you strop your knives. Do you actually, so what you're using a leather, or it's a metal honing rod, you said, right?
Yeah. Metal honing rod. Right.
Okay. And then was this the thing that like you got with a knife block with a bunch of knives? And that's what you're using? Nice.
That's it.
Hey,
that's the one.
Whatever works, man. Right.
Yeah.
I have a leather strop. I have 2 leather strops and then gunny juice. I throw that on there. That makes such quick work. I've used that green compound for the majority of my knife collecting, and I switched over to this gunny juice stuff. It's a diamond compound, and it stuff's fantastic. If you ever switch over to the leather strop, dude, with that stuff, it's 3 passes on each side.
Wow.
And it's done. And tends to not scratch anything. So long as you're doing it effectively. But the RWL34, I've used it a lot because of the specs, right?
Yeah.
And dude, that stuff straps up so nice. So
that's amazing.
Have you ever sharpened knives?
Yeah, I used to have one of those. Gosh, what do you call those things? I forget what it's called, but it was the one that like clamped the knife, and then you'd pass it by or whatever. KME? Yeah, the KME. That's the one. I used to have that one.
It's such a popular one.
It's super popular.
About getting it, honestly, recently.
It's super popular and it's honestly super good. But my problem is you have to keep switching out how fine the rods are and stuff. And for me, I just wasn't patient enough for it. So I'm like, I think I'm gonna not keep this. I think I'm gonna not keep it, and that's what ended up happening. So I have sharpened knives in the past, but to be perfectly honest, that's back before I was spending as much money on knives as I am now. So
sure. I started out on
$100 knife.
What was that, sir?
It's easier when you have a couple $100 knife. If you end up messing up the blade, it's like a little bit easier. Like, it's not that big of a deal. But if you're in the thousands, it's like, oh man.
Yeah,
You're
like
messing
I
up.
really just messed up.
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, and for me, I started out on the Spyderco Sharp Maker. It's
Yeah.
like these two rods, and
I've had one of those too.
I sucked at using that thing, man.
Yeah.
I was awful. I ended up always laying them flat in the thing and just using it like a stone, and I had better results with that than having like the fixed angle. But then as soon as that Work Sharp Precision Adjust for like $50 came out, I got that immediately. I was like, hey, let me try. And at that point I was, I think I had a custom, maybe two, but I was still using it on like the cheaper knives that I have, lower cost knives, and worked awesome. I recently got into whetstone.
Yeah.
I don't know, like that one's taken me a while to get just right. I don't use it enough. Like I don't sharpen enough with it.
Yeah.
To like I feel build. So like I have like a little journal that I keep for myself. Like, okay, like remember like when you're doing the tip, like make sure that you're not raising it, but it's, or like if you raise it, like you need to make sure that it's staying level in regard, like the secondary bevel, like maybe the bevel kind of swoops up a little bit somehow, a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's fine. So it's, yeah. But yeah, I kind of just, right now, I strop so I don't need to sharpen ever.
I mean, that's such a good strategy. And like, honestly, you're maintaining the edge. I feel like you maintain the edge. A person maintains the edge just as well, I feel like. And I feel like it takes so much less time to sharpen, but I also think that the risk of messing up a sharpening job is much higher than the risk of stropping. You know what I mean? So,
I have doled custom knives before with a strap, and my specs, I guess I didn't realize that they were convex edges, which I still don't quite get. Like, so it's not quite an apex, it's kind of like a slight rollover to the edge, and I didn't know how to do it, so I was doing it normal, and I was like, wow, I doled my knife, made it completely unusable. And then talking, I think, with someone else in the community, I want to say it was my buddy Corey, Stafford's EDC. I was talking with him, and he was like, oh, I think you just roll it just a little more. So at first I was like rolling it as I did it. That made it worse. And then finally it was just a steeper angle.
Interesting.
That's how I do the anything with a convex edge.
Fascinating. Okay. Yeah. But that makes sense.
So looking at my little list. So let's go back to when you first started collecting knives. What was, even before you collected maybe, what was the first knife that you kind of were like, hey, I think I like having a knife. Maybe not collecting, but I like having a knife. Do you recall what that was?
Yeah, so back in the day when I was in high school, I I went on a field trip with the high school crew, and it was, man, I was like ninth grader.
East Siders.
Yeah, it was like we really knew everything there is to know back then. At least we thought we did. So we went to a place up in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. It was called China Bazaar. China Bazaar is a really interesting spot. It's a store. It's a bazaar from China. Not really, but it has like ninja throwing knives, nunchucks, and all that crap. It was so interesting. Dude, for like a 16-year-old, you're like, dude, this is freaking amazing. I love it. Constantly going there. Love that place. So anyway, we go in there with a bunch of buddies and stuff, and I see this Smith & Wesson branded knife. It was $30. I was like, crap, $30. Like, dude, that's a lot of money. Like, where am I going to get $30 from? I'm a high school student trying to save up money for a car, and, barely can cover my gas, and you know what I mean? So it was like $30. And finally I ended up saving up for like a couple of months and put some money. I can't believe it took me that long, but it did. And went back up there, grabbed that knife, and it was like, holy crap, I love this knife. So then there was a big brother to that knife when I bought that one, right? it was like this one. This is a small one. This one reminds me of where I started, is what this is. This is a Smith & Wesson. It's a SWAT. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but it's a Smith & Wesson SWAT.
Hold your hand up behind the knife.
Give that a shot. That's WAT.
Back up just a smidge.
Yeah.
Kinda.
It's kind of hard to see.
Yeah.
So it's a Smith & Wesson SWAT. That's what the model name of this is, and the manufacturer is Smith & Wesson. It was $40, not 30. It was $40. I was like, dang, it's got like
save even more
skeletonized, scales and all this other stuff. I'm like, dude, this thing's freaking amazing. It's flat. It carries in the pocket well and everything. It was larger than this one. This is kind of a memory of one, a memento of one.
Sure.
I saved up and went up and bought it for $40. So like, I can't believe I'm spending $40 on a knife. I'm nuts. I'm insane. I'm a lunatic. What am I doing? But I sure love that knife. You fast forward a little bit, and I had a job at McDonald's. I was, it must have been 17 or 18 at that point. It was a year or two later. And my first real knife went to Smoky Mountain Knife Works. A lot of guys know that place. It's a very cool place. Smoky Mountain Knife Works. So I'm not too far away. I'm like 45 minutes away from it, which is awesome. So I went up there. I saw the spider. It can be. It's easier when you're in the custom world because they don't have as many custom. You have some Alamic stuff. I mean, there's some stuff, but you don't have as much as what you and I are potentially looking for. So it's a little bit safer now. It's because all the money is already spent. So it's maybe not a good thing that it's safer, but it is a little bit safer. So I go up there and I see the Smith & Wesson police issue. I forget what they call it. I think it's the Smith & Wesson police issue. I think that's what it's called. And it was a half serrated blade, stainless steel back lock. And I thought that thing was amazing. And it was $130. $130. I'm like, $130. Like, you want to talk about, like, you need to send someone to an insane asylum for spending that much money on a knife. I saved up for maybe 5 months. I mean, it was a long time. In order to cut up cardboard boxes, I'm spending that much money. I go up there. I snag that thing. I'm so proud of my Smith & Wesson. I was like,
how cool did you feel walking out with that thing? Like, yeah.
It was like the pride, the you feel like you made it in life. You're like, I got myself something special, and I wasn't even a knife collector back then. I was just like, I love this thing. So then the knives kind of go, off for a while. You kind of focusing on other things. I mean, you're going into college, you're doing all this other stuff. And back in 2017, I pulled out my Smith & Wesson because I keep saying Smith & Wesson, my Spyderco, sorry. The one in my hand is a Smith & Wesson. It's a Spyderco police issue. That's what it was. So I pull out my Spyderco and I'm like, I wonder what else is out there. Like the 130 didn't register as much. It's like, you got a little bit older and things have changed a little bit. And I've used that knife. I like that knife. So I started getting into other Spydercos, like the Civilian that we talked about earlier, or the Carahawk Karambit, like we talked about earlier, and a lot of others. The Rescue, had a couple of Rescues, had a couple of Mannix. I think I had a Mannix pair of 3. I think I had a pair of 2. I may have just had a couple pair of 3s. So a lot of Spydercos. And then I
had like different sizes too. Like,
yeah.
You were naming off a few bigger ones, but then the pair of 3, it's a bit smaller.
Little baby. Yeah. Well, back then I was really focused on the bigger the better, which is weird because now I like the smaller ones. Right. It's so weird, like the way that like the journey goes. So I was like, I wanted the biggest one I could legally carry because I'm a man and I want to be able to have the most utility out of my huge knife. And now it's like, you know what? I want to be comfortable as hell. I want to be as comfortable as I can be carrying this thing. And I want to, I like the deployment. I like other things about the knife. So went into Spyderco, then I went into Benchmade, started looking into the Benchmades, and I got a 940. And I got a 940 in S90V. Yeah, it is. It really is. And that thing was amazing. I paid, what did I pay?
It was an S90V?
Yeah. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was.
This is 2017 we're in now?
17, yeah. It was the one I think it was carbon fiber and S90V in the same knife.
Probably like an exclusive or something.
It wasn't an exclusive. They had a couple of them. I think it was the Dash 1, 940-1. I think that's what it was. And then they had the 940-2, which was G10 scales, maybe S30, but it was like a better price point or something. I don't remember. But it was the S90V with carbon fiber. It was like 200 and something bucks, like maybe 230 or something. It was a lot of money for me, for sure. And then I loved that thing. That was my baby. It was fantastic. And then after that, it just, the dopamine starts hitting you. And then you're like, what's next? And I'm like, okay, so 230, 240, 230 or 240 bucks is kind of like off the table. I've already done that. So like if you spend another 200 on a second knife or a third knife, it's not that big of a deal. So I started getting into other stuff. So started moving into Lamix. Had a couple of like a whippersnapper that was really interesting, and it kind of moved into kind of the $400 to $500 range.
Yeah, did you have the Warncliffe shaped blade? Yeah.
That is the one I had. That is absolutely the one I had. I think I've got a picture on my Instagram of the one that I had, and that was a custom build. Yeah, he's a super cool guy too. But I started going really crazy, and I ended up finding myself really wanting like a tie lock. And I've owned 4 or 5 tie locks. I've owned a Blue Steam. I owned the Ruby one. I forget what they call that one. I owned a standard one. I owned a First Run, which is apparently very rare. I didn't know that it was very rare. I sold it
for those watching. The tie lock is the CRK.
Yeah,
it's got a unique. It's literally referred to as a tie lock lock mechanism, right?
Yeah. It's a titanium blocking mechanism on the spine of the blade, which connects to the back of the knife. And it was designed by the Hawk brothers, and it was on bearings. It was the only CRK that I'm aware of that was ever on bearings. I believe
those aren't the same guys that are doing the deadlock, are they?
They are,
or the deadbolt or whatever that is.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they've been around that long.
They've been around for a long time. Yeah. So they designed that. They're like crazy in a good way. Really are crazy in a good way.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So they designed those things, and so I ended up getting into some of that stuff, and I ended up owning a bunch of those guys, and then kept on going. I think the most expensive knife at one point I had was a Jens Onzo Neo. It was a Timascus inlay, Timascus backspacer, Timascus clip. It had frickin' Damascus blade, and it was amazing. The thing was absolutely amazing, and I couldn't believe I was spending over $1,000 on a knife. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm spending this much money on a knife. But it was amazing.
That's a tough one to climb over. Like, I know. That hurdle of that $1,000 is rough. And it's not the smartest choice you can make in life to go over that, because from there on, it seems going uphill is somehow a slippery slope downhill.
Yeah. Well, right before that, actually, you're sparking my memory. Right before that was a Norseman. I remember when Norseman was big, and I think I paid exactly $1,000 for that. It was like exactly $1,000 back when they were but like table was like $600 or something, maybe $650 or something. And it was like $1,000. I'm like, I actually found one that I liked, the honeycomb gold, honeycomb powder. I'm like, this thing's pretty amazing. I hear so much good stuff about it. I think I want one. And
the action is insane.
Yeah, the action's
an interesting blade shape on the Norseman. It's not for me personally, but all the knives that you've been talking about, it seems like we've kind of jumped around more like the drop point-ish type of blade shape.
Yeah.
If I'm recalling from everything you've kind of been saying.
Most of them were.
Is that what you were like initially drawn into?
You're talking about somebody that was not a connoisseur, that didn't have a lot of experience, that wasn't really even.
But you weren't going after those crazy.
No.
You said you had the karambit, but you only had the one, right?
I had two of them.
Oh yeah, okay. So you were kind of just
one for each pocket.
Like, all right, that one looks cool. Yeah, I like that. Yep, cool. Good name, Spider Co. I'll go for it. Right?
Yeah.
So, by the time 2020 hits, did you have a custom yet? Were you at the North?
By the time 2018 hit, I think 2018 is when I got the. I don't know if I consider the Norseman a custom. even if we don't consider the Norseman a custom, I had the Neo. I believe it was 2018. So
Okay.
that's right. So that's the point when I was kind of starting to get into that. Then I got into Guthrie, Jason Guthrie, the Scout. I had one of those. Had a Sham in 2018. So 2018, I had quite a few customs at that point.
So 2018 was that
yeah.
line for you. And Sham is 100% handmade.
Yeah.
So that's even another. I know when people say custom, there's that differentiation for a lot of people. Like, is it handmade or not? But there's CNC customs, like tech and like all that. Like, is it a production line?
Right.
You know,
it's hard.
Yeah,
the semantics get difficult. Like the definitions get very difficult, and I think generally in the community it's difficult. Like the amount of is somebody like are the Grimsmos, the Holtz, are some of these folks that are they putting the same amount of time, with the CNC, as are the Guthrie and Les Specht and Bulls. Maybe not, but there's a lot of attention to detail there. Are they putting this?
Right.
There's is it one of those things where the only difference is there's still a lot of quality control. So there's the same amount of time for quality control on both ends. It's just that the CNC gives them the initial, starting point quicker. Is that what's going on? I don't know. It could be, it could not be. But one thing can be said about like the Shams are 100% handmade. The Les Specs are 100%, 110%, completely handmade from top to bottom, beginning to end. Guthrie does
that the first, like, when you got Les Specht, and I know your first was 2022.
Yeah.
Was that your first one-off handmade knife?
Yeah.
Where not a model?
Oh, yeah. And it's still the only one. I don't have any other custom makers that honestly do it that way. I mean, Jens does it
for me as well.
Yeah.
My fifth 20, it's a model technically. I have like a one-off material wise.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it's the specs are the only ones. I think he's one of the few makers that doesn't have a model.
Yeah.
Instead, kind of lets the artist in him really go with like, okay, here's how this is coming along with my drawing. Here's where it's actually shaping up to be. It needs these lines here. That's what I'm going to do. I think that's kind of a unique move for makers, and it can impact your collecting. I'm curious. So how did, once you did get into the customs, right? So you said by 2018, essentially, you're into this new realm of
Spectres and Shams, and
we're spending substantial amounts, right? At this point,
there's a lot of money.
And is that kind of impacting like then what you're looking for? Like, are you still buying the Spydercos at this point, or is it kind of like, okay, those are taking a back seat, I like what I have now, and now I'm kind of building up this other portion of my collection? Does that make sense?
Well, there's definitely multiple layers to the hedonic adaptation as it goes. So like you have the financial part of it, right? So like you're adapting to price points, but then I think you're also adapting to the product that you're getting, right? So the action, the fit and finish. There were things that I used to think are like a CRK, for example. I'm not dissing CRK whatsoever, but I used to look at a CRK and say, holy crap, that fit and finish is nuts, insane.
It is though. It's still
it's not a Les Specht. Not. It's simply not. And again, I'm not saying anything negative about CRK. I'm not dissing anybody. But I am saying from my experience, like another one. If you look at the difference between the Shirogorov Neon, right? So like the Neon Zero, you look at the price point of that, and then you look at like a Mini Arius, right? Around the same price point, generally speaking. I know there's like a
very
flipper delete, like a flipper delete version that's a couple $100 more or $150 more or whatever. But then I'm over here like looking at the quality of that guy. It's nuts.
Mini Arius, baby.
Yeah.
I love it, by the way.
It's amazing,
It's got to be one of my favorite knives to date, especially that price range, by the way. Yeah.
Like the Neon, in my opinion, is way worse of a knife. I can't even say way worse. It's not as good of a knife
Really?
as that, in my opinion. Shergorov Neon, definitely. If you put them right next to each other, my take on it is it's a lot more flimsy. I think that the action is far worse, in my opinion. I also think that it's more variable. I've seen neons that drop shut very quickly. I've seen neons that absolutely do not. I had one, and my buddy had one. They're both neons. They're both from the same, time frame, and the fit and finish just wasn't the same on either
That
of
is
them.
the biggest thing I've noticed with specifically. I had a Neon Zero as well,
Yeah.
and that's one thing that I noticed across because I've handled 3 or 4.
Yeah,
None of them were the same. Not
But
a
none of them
single
are the
one.
same.
Now
They're
mine,
not bad. They're just not the same. They're not consistent.
yeah, that
know what I
was
mean?
that was unfortunate. So I do understand, like being able to reproduce the
Yeah.
same action.
Yeah.
That is definitely a unique thing to be able to have, right? Like, so like you have Holt, you have Koenig, those are big guys. Who does the Norseman again?
Up in Canada, Grimsmo.
Grimsmo brothers, yeah. So Grimsmo knives, I think those are kind of like you said, they're another level.
Yeah.
Neon Zero, I honestly, the one I had was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I know my buddy has a Neon Zero right now and is head over heels for it.
Yeah.
When they're on. And their attention to detail with like tolerances, clearances, the overall build of that knife, I think is pretty fantastic. The quality control, I think, might not be there.
And I personally think pricing is too high. My personal opinion. Like an F95, or I think it's called an F95 at like almost $1,000. It's hard to compare that because you can find
$730.
Yeah.
Staying under 1,000 is a big thing in your mind too, right? Like staying under 1,000 feels good. Like I have this Stefan SB, and having this,
exactly
100% handmade knife under $1,000, it helps me to appreciate it even more. Let alone the fact that it's a perfectly made knife.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the other thing with the mini Arius or even the regular Arius, there are those pockets on the inside of the thing. There's contouring. The blade is very there's a lot of milling going on in that blade. It's not just a flat thing with a little flipper. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of consistency. There seems to be a lot more attention to detail with not just consistency, but there seems to be small stuff. Like even the inside, there's contouring on the contouring inside of it. The blade itself, not the blade, but the pocket clip, the angle at which the pocket clip goes is amazing. It's just fascinating. And then like, you know what I mean? Like there's so much going on.
I think that's the one thing I would change is it's hard to make out with that 720p, but it is like a sharp angle there where it makes contact. Yeah. So that does make it difficult going in and out of pocket.
Yeah. I had the same problem with the Mini as well. I like the regular one. The regular one seemed better. I think that is a challenge with the Mini for sure.
Here, let me grab that real quick. I think because I do have a full size.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, it does seem like slightly less sharp.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah,
still kind of
difficult in and out of. There's more space to work with. I don't know if the clip is the perfect clip necessarily, but
the pocket clip isn't the best. It's not the worst though. I've definitely handled worse.
It works pretty well for me. Generally speaking,
the job done. And like, I love the knife so much.
Yeah.
Real quick, weird thing about Koenig. people went crazy about the full size.
Yeah.
Fantastic knife. It's a fantastic knife. It's a bit big for my taste. The reason I keep it is it's my lucky knife. I'm a weird person that has a lucky knife, so I'm not gonna ever get rid of it. But the mini Arius, people hate it on. It's kind of crazy to me because the mini, like people didn't really, it wasn't for people. And I know you're one of them. Like you didn't, you're not keeping too many knives at the moment, like high end, like a ton of money into there. I know you're saving your money for things outside of the collection at the moment, right? But I guess what about the Koenig Arius didn't really, I guess if you were back to when you were collecting the Holtz, the Grimsmo, like would this have been a contender to stay in the collection at that point?
I had one. A buddy let me borrow it for like a month or something. The same one not the same exact one, but the same model that you've got with the blue hardware and stuff. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. The only thing I would try to go after is a mini. I'd try to do a carbon fiber of some kind, and I'd definitely do a flipper delete, no doubt about it. That's what I would 100% do.
Crazy aspect of this knife is this honestly horrible looking flipper tab. It's large. There's a lot of meat to it, and then when it's out here, it's just so big and bulky.
Yeah, it's huge.
My buddy got a flipper delete aftermarket, and it looks fantastic. You can use this as like a finger choil.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people love it because when they like go to unlock, it drops to their thumb, and that blocks it blade from being a factor for like cutting yourself. And then you can just let it drop. For me, I always open mine kind of like in a way that it's not going to close, and then I just give it a little touch.
If you want to fix that, instead of holding it here, drop it here, the bottom.
Yeah,
it's not angled up or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I personally like to do it this way though.
Yeah,
because I don't want it to fall shut just yet. I'm fine, but I know a lot of people want that single movement almost, where it's so. And that flipper tab does get in the way. And honestly, I just don't like the look. Like if I want to cut something,
I agree.
Can't go this low, like I have to, and that makes me have that much less of the blade in contact now.
I know some guys like the flipper tab, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
The regular size, I've had a couple custom Ariuses, and the Arius is what taught me how to spidey flick. It is the best spidey flicking knife that I'm aware of. Rosenti's included. I love Rosenti, but the Arius is a better spider flicker in my opinion. Better than any Spyderco.
This was my first truly premium knife. Was this guy? Before that, it was ZT. But I will say it's nice. But my favorite knife to spidey flick has got to be Rosenti. It's I love like. I don't know. But the mini Arius is unbelievably good too.
Yeah.
I think it might be a lighter D10 on the.
It also depends on the day. So I've had a couple small Nirvanas. I've had a couple large Nirvanas. I've had Python, mini Python. Listen, there is something about that integral. When you lock that thing, holy crap, does that feel good? Like you actually get like a haptic sensation. Like it's amazing.
Yeah.
And the sound, the snap, it's a vault. It just locks it. So no, 100%. There's a lot of passion. I feel like it's a very passionate deployment when you're doing that. I think they're different. I think it's kind of like one's lasagna, one's spaghetti. They're both freaking delicious.
100%. Yeah.
You know, but it's hard to like. Listen, if I could help it, I absolutely would have a mini Arius flipper delete, and I absolutely would not have sold my mini Nirvanas, or not all of them anyway. So I 100% agree. Yeah,
we've definitely chatted about that. We'll get into the knives that you sold when we go into more of your collection. But let's go. I'm gonna I'm just referring to a list off screen again. So let's go into budget knives. So first off, how do you define that bracket of budget knife? Are we talking $10 and less, or as an example, or what most people do, $100 or less?
Yeah. So the way that I personally defined it was, I guess it depends on when in my life I was taking the locking the picture.
How do you define it currently?
Oh, okay. Currently, okay, all right. So $500 is a good number. So I do 500, 1,000, then 2. So anything below 500 for me is budget.
Okay.
Anything 500 to 1,000, or maybe even up to 1,200, but let's just say 1,000. That's kind of like middle ground.
So anything under 500, you're willing to literally like throw it at whatever. Like you're willing to cut things that maybe it's not quite intended for.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Well, I'll give you a better example. I used to have a Spyderco Python. Paid $580 for it. It was my heavy use.
Nice.
I can cut anything. I'd scratch the way, it doesn't even matter. So 500 and below is like, it's just because I'm that crazy. I'm insane. It's not a good thing. This is not a good thing.
No, it's okay.
This is a good thing. It's not.
To each their own, man.
Right.
I'm not here to judge. The way I do it doesn't have to be the way you do it, right? Like, right. And I think it's like preference. That's one thing in this community I think that people can get a little hung up on is, this material is the best material. This is how you should use your knife. This is how you shouldn't use your knife. I'm kind of one of those guys where like, I like to hear about it, right? Like I want to hear about it, but in no way is that going to impact me negatively.
Yeah.
It might impact me in how I use my knives. Like I might learn something.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you do you. So like if anyone's offended that, you got a little more money to throw around. Yeah. Sure. Like if you want to throw that at your knives, go ahead. You're also, like probably not driving a Ferrari all the time, right? No. So like I think, if that's what you want to spend your money on, dude, have at it. It's a badass knife to have as a badass user. A Spyderco Python, like come on. Yeah. So I think that's
the user. Yeah.
I know a lot of people, will do that 100 range, but I think once you kind of get into the custom world, it can impact your appreciation to want to carry a knife that maybe isn't like up to like X standard, whatever that standard is in your mind, right? Like I know a lot of people that are into the handmade knives, like you and I, a lot of people won't carry anything but handmade knives.
Right.
Teach their own. Like there's nothing wrong with that either. If you can afford that, have at it, man. Like, and I think for me personally, like I still collect the budget knives where they're under $100.
Yeah.
I can't like stop, but man, I think specifically I think an interesting tidbit for people to know is Mitch doesn't own many knives, right? Like
currently,
currently. Over the course of your collecting, it's
I've typically hovered between 10 and 15 at a time.
10 and 15. And that's including all of them, like regardless of the price. 10 and 15 knives.
Yeah. I've hovered around 10 or 15, and I had the general collecting side of it. I started around $200 to $300. Probably the least expensive would be $200 or $300, and that would be like my total user or whatever. And then the top, I'd always have a couple above $1,000 or something. I don't want to say always, but I usually had a couple above $1,000. Right. And just kind of rotate back and forth and go through them and just enjoy them and that type of thing. So
and you're truly enjoying them. You're using all of your knives.
Every single one gets used, no matter how much they cost.
That's kind of rare. I think especially when you get into the custom world, you meet a lot of people that are doing more of we refer to them as safe queens, right? Like the safe knives.
Yeah.
And actually, that's one of my questions. So have you ever had a safe, like a knife? No.
Never.
That's wild.
Even my tie locks, right? So my tie locks, the concern with the tie lock is the titanium lock on the top of it is anodized blue, and it's a very electric looking cool blue. And the concern is when you touch it over time, the anodization comes off, and it's a problem.
Right.
Didn't matter. I'd totally use every single one of them. Every single one of them got used. Now here's the thing though, I'm super careful when I'm using them. It doesn't mean they don't do the job. They do the job, but I'm probably not throwing them around. If they're in that $500-$600 or below, so like the neon, right? The neon I paid $720. $720 was the, literally dropped on the ground is fine. You know what I mean? But it's a neon. It's there's, you know what I mean? So it's like you can do it if it's designed for that. Do it. You know what I mean? Like do it. Some of these other more, yeah.
Funny tidbit. So this is like my first premium knife that I got. The first week I had it, the first I want to say day or two that I had it.
Yeah.
I drove my daughter to daycare. I got out of my car. This was on my lap. Spilled over onto the driveway or the parking lot.
Yeah.
It was a rough, tar blacktop, and just scratched it up. I was just like, awesome, knife pops out. And I was just like, oh my God. And that it killed me inside that happened.
So bad. Yeah.
But since then, I'm better about having a knife on my lap, and then especially in the car or somewhere. But then, I think some knives I'm more okay with that. Admittedly, I think you and I are definitely different in that aspect. Not saying one's better than the other, right?
Right.
But that's super interesting that you really see it as a tool. It sounds like it's a companion. You love having this thing. You're gonna collect it, but at the end of the day, for you, at the beginning of the day, for you, it's tool first.
And I think part of it is not just really the price, right? So you were talking about hedonic adaptation. I think that's also like price point and as far as like the quality of the product itself, and I think it's less of the cost of the knife and more of what it's like. Like I just saw like things like the neon. I mean, even my Okluma, I've already dropped this thing. You know what I mean?
Mine's been dropped so much.
Yeah, exactly. But it feels so, it hurts when it's happening, but it belongs to me now. It's like, listen, this thing's mine. And it's going to continue to go. And if I have any issues with it, Jeff is 100% going to take care of it. It's not an issue. It's a non-issue. So listen, use it for what it's used for. Now, listen, if I drop my carbon fiber less spec'd or my ironwood less spec'd or something on the ground, it's going to hurt a lot because that's a lot harder to address if I need to.
I dropped the less spec'd while it was in the slip.
Yeah. But
that slip in particular wasn't quite enough to, it covered over the top, but I guess not enough when it impacts.
Yeah.
Well, I had it in my hand. I was, again, getting my daughter out of my car.
Yeah.
But I kept the slip in my hand at the time. I had that and a bunch of mail.
Yeah.
And that fell, and it fell like this. The knife, I don't think it fell out of the slip because when I got it off the ground, it was in the slip, and I was like, oh, thank God.
Yeah.
Not the case.
Yeah.
It's still scratched, the one, and I know you know the one I'm talking about.
I do.
And that was, that hurt. That hurt. I reached out to David. I was like, hey, man, is this something you can fix? And he's like, oh, yeah, easily. I can fix that for you, no problem.
Yeah.
Send it over. And I think it was a mix, a combination of I'm going to have to send it to France.
Yeah.
And then B, he kind of was like, I mean, doesn't that kind of help you use it? So I think David really appreciates that outlook that you have where it's now yours. I've recently come around specifically with my specs, or the fifth, my FIFA 20, I said it, FIFA. So this guy does an amazing, and yes, I'm using my shirt on.
That was
nice. A crazy person.
I like
but he does an amazing hand rub, where it's mirroring, it's a mirror, right? You can see my keyboard right there. Yeah. It's nuts. I use this one there, and I'm just like, you know what? Even if it can't necessarily be fixed by the maker, I can probably find someone that can fix it. And if I consider it a keeper, I'm using it. And anymore, I've recently gotten to a point with my collection where I'm like, I don't know that I could sell something. I want to sell something, honestly, and I can't. I'm just like, I think I'm at that point because I know a knife down the line that I have a build for.
Yeah.
Where I want to sell something for that knife to come in, and I can't.
It's hard to find that. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I mean, Shamari is the same way, right? Like to be perfectly honest, the Sham, amazing knife, right? Amazing knife. I like the makers, but they're not going to fix my knife.
Yeah.
It's not going to get fun. It's not going to get done. You know,
it's difficult. Yeah. And again, yeah, I'm with you. Like, I had lunch with the guys. They're awesome. Fantastic people.
Communication was better. I do.
Yeah, the communication is rough, right? Like, I feel like they need a social media component to their company, and you know, for whatever
respond.
I think it's because, especially with them, they're probably the most popular custom maker out there, right? So, but anyway, so right now, you had some budget knives back in the day, and I guess on the less expensive side, where you did have some backlocks going in.
Yeah.
You had tie lock, which I wouldn't call not expensive, but it was a unique lock mechanism. Yeah. When it comes to lock mechanisms, I know, I guess, where are you at right now?
So liner locks and frame locks are probably my two favorites. I don't like backlocks anymore, personally. I think that it makes it difficult to have a good action. Not impossible, but very difficult to have a good action. Axis lock is interesting. I wish that there were more. One of the knives I had was the Benchmade Anthem, which was an axis lock integral in bearings, on bearings. And I wish they'd do more of that stuff because that action was fidgety as hell. It was amazing. That axis lock is amazing. Honestly, I really do like the axis lock. So the axis lock, liner lock, and frame locks are probably my favorite. Past that,
the axis lock on the the Anthem, that one is next level. I've only handled it on. Let me get one of my favorite. One of my favorite knives is the Benchmade Griptilian. The axis lock on this one, it works, but not my favorite. This is running on washers.
I was going to say the big difference. I think I still think they had the Omega springs. I think the whole mechanism was the same, but I think it was on washers versus on bearings, which made a big difference on the action. And when it makes a difference in the action, it makes a difference on the locking mechanism in that scenario as well. You know, it's not bad. It's just not as good, you know, but the Anthem was nuts. Like, it was insane. Yeah. I loved my Anthem. I've had two. One was I customized one. The other one didn't get customized. And I really regret letting them go, to be honest with you, because I can't get one now. Didn't like the clip, not because of the shape or look. I know people were talking about how it looks weird. I'll leave it at that. But
this is like
it was just not very good in the
standard one now that they
do. That's the standard, right? That's what the 940s have. I think the bug outs have those.
Yeah, I'm not. It just doesn't do anything for me personally. Yeah. But Benchmade, I don't think they're putting out super unique clips. Like, I don't think that's their main focus. That's why they're putting out so many knives with the same exact clip. Like, to me, that's just further evidence that they're more focused on other aspects of the knife. The axis lock doesn't do it for me. I mean, I loved this knife, but this one, I think centering's fine. But then for me, there's a bit of blade play.
QC is horrible. Listen, I'll be honest with you. Let me think if this is correct. Yes, all of the Benchmades I've ever purchased, and I've purchased many, every single one had a QC issue. Like, freaking every single one.
For me, the QC was okay, but over time, now this one you could say like, oh, I put scales on it and that made it worse. This made the centering good. The centering was off before. Yeah. So like stuff like that where it's like, come on, guys. But then my other Benchmade is a Benchmade Torrent. That was like my first like real knife where they don't make that model anymore. I think they called it nitrous assist or something. It was like an assisted, kind of like the Ken Onion, like they're assisted knives, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that knife, that was centered once upon a time.
Yeah.
And then over time just got horrible. That knife I used and abused.
Yeah.
But anyway, so super interesting. I'm gonna move on to another topic. Ooh.
Yeah.
I
do like the axis lock though. I personally think it's kind of interesting, and
it is a real cool one. So you never got into like slip joints, right? Like,
okay, so listen, I've had buddies send me very expensive custom hand-built slip joints.
Yeah.
And they've tried. I can't do it. I can't, man. They look good. I just can't do it. Like,
they look beautiful.
Yeah, they do. Listen, and there is some character. There is some character. There's some value there. Absolutely. There's some skill. There's some history. It's just not, I'm not the guy. I can't get over a lot. Most of them have no clip, right? Let's start with that. Most of them have no clip. Even if I get, Enrique to add a clip to his, to a Pena trapper or something. Pena is a little bit different. Pena is more of like a modern slip joint looking thing. So it's actually a liner lock in a lot of cases, or a frame lock in some cases. But if you're talking like a real traditional slippy, I can't get over the clip and I can't get over the locking mechanism. I got to have it clipped in my pocket, and I have to have a different locking mechanism. I want it to lock. Personally, I want it to lock. So no, I can't. That one's hard for me because it's a great thing. Like, I understand the appeal. I'm not the guy.
I've not been either. And I was holding up this custom that is on loan from a good friend of mine but this is a Vetrov. I'm pretty sure he's a ridiculously famous maker. I don't know too much because I'm not into the slip joints. I think I'm kind of with you, right? Like, a lot of times they have stainless steel incorporated, so they're heavy. I think, they are what they are. But yeah, I'm with you. I personally really like fidget factor, which is one of my questions for you is, where do you land? Is fidget factor a factor when you're buying a knife? Like, currently?
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite knives I ever purchased was the Anthem because of fidget factor, 100%. Another thing is I'm constantly fidgeting my stuff, not even my knife. Like, even when we were talking, you probably saw me popping my pen open and close because I love that. So 100%, it's definitely part of it. Is it all of it? No, I think kind of like a human being has different parts of their personality that add to their overall character. I think a knife is the same way. I think there are different parts of it. So you can have one that's not as fidgety, it's not as drop shut, that is different, and it's going to be different, and it's still going to be good. It's not necessarily going to be bad.
Gotcha. So let's go at the moment. I know you're not chasing anything at the moment because you whittled down. Mitch is gonna, he's saving up for something with his family, so that's what he's pursuing.
I'm out of the market for a little while. Yeah. So I've taken 2 or 3, might have been, maybe it was closer to 6 months at this point, where I'm pausing, not just knife collecting, but anything involving collecting. And it's just a big pause. And it's probably going to be a 2-year pause. It's probably going to be a 2-year pause. Yeah. So that's kind of where we stand. Yeah.
And Mitch is one of those guys that can really, he's very well disciplined. I don't know if you can tell here, the dude's fit. He's working out like crazy. He's got this whole workout regimen. His diet is like concrete, except for apparently last night where he ate a whole pie.
I screwed up. Exactly.
But, how about if money wasn't a factor?
Yeah.
What's the knife that you're buying?
I'm offering you. I'm offering you
enough money to get their knife. So whatever knife. What is it?
I'm offering you $20,000 for your micarta less spec. I got another buddy, Hadrian Popa. He's a super cool guy too. He's got
that mini micarta that he has.
With Fuller. Between that one and yours, those are my 2 favorite of all time. Yeah, that one right there. I'd give you $20,000 for that.
Yeah, this is the one that Mitch is referring to.
Yeah. We're assuming money doesn't count, right? I'd give you
Yeah.
20. I'd give Hadrian 20 and say, like, give me those 2 knives. I'm done.
Yeah. Like,
Drop the mic. I'm done.
You're a multi-billionaire.
Yeah.
Elon Musk ain't got nothing on you.
Right. I don't even care if the money is relevant. You know, it's like, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, this is probably
that's that and Hadrian's knife. Those kill me. Like, amazing. Both of them.
Yeah, I mean, respect in general, right? Like, you can, I get that, man. I get that.
Yeah.
Okay, so interesting. So more mini specs you would add, but they're one-offs, right? Like, no two are alike, right? Like, and
correct.
I'm not trying to have you flex.
Yeah.
But so what two, like, you're down to 2 truly handmade knives.
Yeah.
What are they? Do you mind sharing them with
us?
Yeah,
so my full collection, if I'm not counting, not really real knives. I don't want to be mean, but I'm just saying the reason I got this is to remind me where I started. That's kind of the point of this purchase. I made this purchase back in like 2018, I think, when I started getting into the real, I guess I really started to add customs. I'm like, well, let's keep this around. So that's what that is. That's a memento. So my entire collection at the moment consists of, as far as knives, I've got my carbon fiber mini less spec. Love the minis, obviously. I had my Carta one that I really liked. I let that one go. I had a G10 one that I really liked. Let both of those go. Again, I'm chasing something that's interesting. That's going to be good for everybody. And then my ironwood. So currently, my only 2 knives that I would consider really I'd wear are these 2 right here. 2 less specs. One's a little bit smaller. One's a little bit larger. I have one third one. And this one has sentimental value. This is a 0450, and it has the herringbone Damascus. It is the FCDAM model. They only made 400 of these things. 400. Yeah, I think it was 400. And I think they were charging $400 for these guys. So I picked this one up at Smoky Mountain Knife Works back when they had these available. They had one. The store only got one.
Wow.
I'm not sure it was 400. They may have limited it to 200 or 300. I have to look at the certificate. I don't remember. But anyway, they thought it was nuts at that store for spending $400 on a knife. And I'm like, you're right. I am kind of crazy. Absolutely. Yeah. So I ended up grabbing this one. This is the knife I wore when my son was born. So in 2018 September. So I can't let this one go. So the theory with this one is this one will get passed down to him one day. So that's why this stays around. So with everything involved, I got this guy. That's more of a sentimental piece than my 2 less specs. Everything else is gone. And we talk sometimes. I'm like, dude, I really regret there are a lot that I honestly regret letting go. If I'm honest, the Nirvanas, the mini Nirvanas were amazing. There was one that I had a Mokutai collar Mokutai collar on it, a mini. It was amazing. I really like that knife.
Yeah, they're definitely something special. But
yeah, I think Rosenti's great. Rosenti is not only is he a nice guy. In my experience, he's a nice guy, but I really like his stuff. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Persian. The Toad, I had some issues with the Toad.
I think it looks gorgeous. I haven't.
It's amazing. I like the idea. I like I love the idea of like a slip joint looking tiny, spider flickable mini little integral kind of situation. That thing's amazing as hell. But in reality, I kept poking my fingers on it and stuff, and it was integral. Yeah, it was amazing.
And I'm sure if you've made it this far into this video, guys, you probably know what an integral is. But
sorry, explain that.
It's a solid chunk of titanium milled out.
Yeah,
and then you can turn that into the frame lock, right?
Yeah,
but it's one solid chunk.
It's amazing.
Wild knife. That's really cool to hear. I'm gonna keep jumping. So if money weren't a factor, we got some
taking your knife from you.
Very specific mini specs. So I know you're not chasing anything at the moment. You dove in probably around 2017. It sounds like hardcore, which is a lot of people. It was 2020. I know for myself, it was 2020.
Okay.
I really got a premium knife. I think my first Premium was that Benchmade Torrent.
Yeah.
And then after that, I had an 0450 CF.
Yeah.
That was my most expensive knife at the moment. I think it was $200.
Yeah.
It was like $199.99.
Yeah, I remember that.
That is a really,
yeah,
really well-made knife. I've handled a few ZTs since then.
Yeah.
They're all built like tanks. Like
Yeah,
they're all, even that tiny little 0450.
Yeah.
It's built amazing.
Yeah. One I wish I could do, if I were in a different position, I gotta throw Mitch Clark out there.
Another Mitch, of course.
Another Mitch, yeah. Dude, number one, he seems like an amazing guy. I didn't get a chance to meet him, but he sounds like an amazing guy. Nice guy.
I've chat with him a bit on Instagram, and he
seems amazing.
Down to earth. He's like a normal guy.
And his stuff is nuts. Like, I'm telling you, I want one of those doggone things. I need to be careful. Like, if I got on his books, I probably would pull the trigger. Like, regardless of what I'm doing at the moment, as far as my long-term life goals that I'm pursuing at the moment, I'd probably be like, listen, I cannot turn this thing down. You know, it's like that's one that I'd absolutely on the top of my list for whenever things come back around where I'm buying stuff again. 100%.
Or for those, if you're still watching, I handled Mitch Clark and I recorded a video for you guys, and it is a small details overview. So it's one of those where I go pretty deep into the knife, nerd out about the aspects. I shared with my close friends, Mitch, of which I consider one, and dude, I gotta say, his knives, you're not getting better. They're nuts. You know, I have many knives where I consider like they're perfect. You're not getting better. Like, I think for a lot of people that have handled a chamois, where it's perfect. You wouldn't change anything necessarily. It's like that. It's this 100% handmade knife. His attention to detail on everything is obnoxious. Mitch Clark, I could go on about this dude, but the little bit that I want to say about Mitch Clark is he got into knives, not handling any customs, and then built a knife that he thought was the right way to make a custom knife, and just did things his own way. He paved his own path. Now, yes, he talks to other custom makers now, and he's handled other custom knives. And, you know, he's big in South Africa. There's many South African makers like the Bulls, like Tice, like Trevor Berger.
Amazing.
I love my Trevor Berger. But, yeah, so Mitch Clark, and he's just a fantastic down-to-earth dude. I'm really hoping to, you know, chat with him. I know you're not going to be making it to Blade. Hopefully I am, and I'm hoping to talk to him.
Yeah.
And I'll let you know so you could live vicariously through how that goes.
I want to live through you 100%.
So, but yeah, so no, that's very cool. And then I kind of want to, for the next portion of this, I kind of want to go through. Let's go through. Oh, come on. First time. There's a button that says exit full screen. That's probably what I want to do. Okay, so I'm going to share Carnivore EDC, which is Mitch's Instagram. First time doing this.
Technical difficulties happen, man. It's part of it. Yeah, it's all right.
So we're going to do this. Bear with me. For those of you that are still here, comment below. Get it together, bro. All right. Let's see if this works.
Yeah, I guess while you're doing that, I'll fill some space here. So,
yeah,
the Instagram account is one of those things where I wish I started it a long time ago, because I have been through so many knives, like a lot of us, and I was like, man, I wish I would have documented this. So there's just so much there, you know. There's just so much there. So a lot of it is kind of building I sort of want my kids to see this. Like even my son, like I have a knife for him. Well, listen, the knife is in pictures that's on my on my Instagram account. And it's an interesting, I don't want to say legacy. I mean, that's kind of a hard one to throw out there, but it is very fun as part of this hobby to be able to document the journey. And it definitely brings back reminders of what I thought was amazing and how I felt when I would have that piece. There's a lot of that going on. So yeah, that's kind of the focus of it.
I kind of took it as my wife is big about taking pictures. I'm pretty bad about taking pictures, just in general. I don't have the craziest amount of posts even on my Instagram. I force myself to do it, but it's to remember things from the past. So I'm with you. I think seeing my journey through knives is cool to record, just so even if no one else appreciates it, I do. I really like looking back at my knives, and I want like a nice picture then to remember and stir a memory.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
So we're taking a look at Mitch's Carnivore EDC, right? So give him a follow, guys. Again, I'll provide the link in the description. But he's on Instagram. He's got some really cool knives. Now, again, we know he's down to these 3 knives, so not all of these he owns, but this is a journey through what he's had pictures of in the past. So right here we could see we got that brass DCO. We got the, from Okuma, we've got the Space Coral Respect. I'm going to scroll to a picture of that Space Coral Respect, hopefully. Oh, before we do, let's check out the ironwood on this so you can actually see amazing. That gorgeousness. Beautiful. Yeah, that's just, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Right, we get it. Knives David Respect, that's the maker, David Respect. But yeah, so, I mean, just look at these beautiful, beautiful lines. I mean, come on. So that's gorgeous. I think, man.
I agree, dude. It's amazing.
Beautiful materials. So let's go see. I'm trying to get one. That Space Coral. Here's a good one. Lone shot. The other one had the mini Arius in it. So let's go into here. And Mitch, is this coming through like when I click on it?
Yeah. Like even here you can see the lines, the copper veins in the carbon fiber.
It's utterly beautiful.
It is.
The clip is really cool on this one.
Yes.
I mean, come on. And the copper veins, if you will, in this carbon fiber.
Amazing.
When you zoom out, you're really not seeing that too much. So I love that subtlety to this carbon fiber.
Agreed. Looks like micarta almost in a lot of cases, like a dark antique micarta of some kind. Yeah.
100% see that, dude. 100% see that. So yeah, we've had a bunch. We've had the OZ Rosie, the Roosevelt.
That one is another one. I regret letting that. There were so many on this page. I just regret letting go. So that OZ, love that. Love that knife. The blade shape, I struggled to actually use it as well because of the way that it's kind of like a Persian feel to it where it kind of moves up. I had a hard time keeping the blade on whatever it is that I was cutting. So that was a little bit of a challenge. But that build with he does an amazing job with the clips and the backspacer if you opt for the Mokutai clip and backspacer, which I did on this one. Just amazing. Just
back
stunning.
When they were custom builds, it sounds like.
I don't think he does as much of those anymore, but I did with this one.
He doesn't at all, yeah.
Yeah, so that, again, I regret it. There's so many pieces that I sort of, I'm like, man, I should have kept that one,
Honestly, Daniel has come very far. The quality to his knives is noticeable. To me, personally, I've held, I think 700 was the one that I owned, and then all the way to 2000 and like number model. But then I've also handled, I think it was in the 300s. There's a noticeable difference in many of those knives where the quality, I think especially after around 1,000, it really hit a point for me where it was, wow, like you can take the knife apart and just tighten everything down when you put it back together. Perfect.
Yeah.
I think in the older ones, you still had to like mess with the tension on certain things, get the pivot just right.
That was mine.
Where they're at now is such a fine level of refinement it's truly impressive.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. Fine knife. Let me just see some other ones. I know you mentioned that greenless spect. Let's see. There's your neon.
Amazing, yeah. Just so many good options. So many good options.
This is his Blade Show 2022 haul, if I recall.
Yeah.
Guys.
And that was an alley as well.
Two Lotto knives. And does it zoom in when I zoom in?
It does.
Oh, awesome. Can you see my cursor even on it?
I can, yeah.
Oh, cool.
So the one on the right was the Lotto. The one on the left, that's what I waited for. The Ware alley. I actually waited in line for that guy, and I ran
to a beautiful knife. And you guys might remember, those of you watching, you guys might remember I had the Weir alley that I shared.
Yeah.
Whew. Dude's putting out phenomenal pieces, and they're gorgeous. I think yours wins with the blade hole, though. I'm a sucker.
Another regret. That one there is probably towards the top, and because another thing is, Matthew is such a good guy. Like him and his wife and he's a family man. He's just a good guy. He's a cool guy, great family, and he stands behind his pieces 100%. He really is a great maker.
I had some issues with quality with the knife that I had, and he handled it so well. He paid for the shipping. Like, that dude, he's one of the good ones. He's truly one of the good ones. And I think he's going to be one of those amazing makers.
Yeah. That's my impression.
I think he's already pretty fantastic, but I think he's going to be really, really great.
Yeah.
In given time.
Oh yeah, I agree.
He's putting out great stuff, and he's such a good man. That's the easiest way to put it.
Yeah, that's my impression also. Absolutely.
This is a wild picture, dude. I just want to click in on this one real quick. The fact you have 3. Is that a Nirvana as well?
All of them. No, that's a Python. That wasn't even all the ones I had. That was just 3 of them.
Man, oh man. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Come on.
Yeah.
So, where are you on Damascus? Do you like collecting Damascus?
I like Damascus.
You love it?
I do. I like Damascus. I mean, my favorite is probably that Ware alley where it had that nice Damacore situation. I really like that.
I love the core. Anything with a core or
bacon Damascus is fun. I like the bacon Damascus sometimes. That's kind of cool.
Pretty wild, the bacon Damascus. How exact the layers are.
Yeah. I mean, the only Damascus one I have right now is my herringbone Damascus on my ZT at the moment, which is super interesting. But no, I'm a big fan. I really do like it, and I use it.
You owned a toad at once. I did not.
Yeah. I've owned the toad. Yeah, absolutely.
That's sick.
Yeah.
There's Trevor Berger.
Yeah. There's my
This
Tylock.
Is the Tylock, guys.
I've owned
what we were talking about earlier.
4 or 5 Tylocks. I've owned 4 or 5 of those guys. And if I still own 4 or 5 of them, they're very difficult to find at the moment. Very difficult. Great knife. Not perfect for me, but it was a great knife. Same reason I don't love the flip joints. It's the action. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Same thing. Unfortunately.
Keep scrolling a little bit. Oh, it's got to catch up. You got some beautiful shots, man.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I remember you chased this one for a minute.
I chased one for a while. Yeah.
Yep.
And it was a good one. It was a good one. Listen, I don't regret that one. I don't regret that one. I really like the action on that guy, but the action, again, the variability with Shirogorov, for some reason, I got a good one here. But I know multiple people that have the same. That was the 2020 COVID, what do they call it? COVID killer, neon, or Hation COVID killer. I think that's what that one was called. And it was copper dust carbon fiber scales, and it actually had a copper backspacer. The backspacer was actually copper. I loved it, honestly.
I can see that right
Yeah,
there.
it really is. Patine as well. It was very cool. But
Beautiful.
mine happened to be a really good one. I know a couple other people that have them, and their action's different. It's just different, you know. So
there's your whippersnapper, Shan.
Yeah.
Man, that whippersnapper.
Yeah.
And I saw the BBMs too. I had a BBM. Mine wasn't the best, but I've handled ones that are amazing.
I like mine. I liked mine a lot. I really did. And I like the look of it. I don't like green. I like that green, you know. Another one that I sort of regret letting go. I really like that one. Yeah. The sham was nice too, man. Like a 3-inch sham on bearings. It doesn't get that much better than that. I just wish it was easier to, I don't know. That was a tough one. That one's a tough one.
It's tough for sure.
Yeah.
So very cool, man.
Yeah.
So I don't know, anything that I didn't cover that you wanted to share at all?
Dude, I appreciate you doing this, and I think also everyone definitely. I mean, they're clearly following you if they're watching the video, but you have some of the best knives I've ever seen in my life. Like the collection's amazing, and the other thing that's really cool, it's kind of nice to see a kindred spirit when it comes to taste with some of these knives, and I think that we have that.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I think that's it's nice to find others that enjoy the same knives.
Yeah.
Especially with the customs, you can go everywhere, right?
Yeah.
I've kind of fallen. I don't think I have. I think all my customs are from ex-US, or rather international. Sorry, job talk a little for a second there. They're non-US knives. Like I'm real big into French knives. I love French knives. I love the aesthetic. The guys just seem like humble. Not to say that they're not, like, US makers are not humble. Like they're awesome too. But I just like the aesthetic. South African, I've got some of them with the Trevor Burger.
The Trevor Burger is amazing.
And Canadian.
Yeah.
The Resenti.
Yeah.
But, you know, I do have American stuff like with Koenig, right? And I've handled a lot of American stuff, right? Like some of the crazy makers like Epros. I haven't owned Oser. I met Oser. You know, it was kind of in passing almost at Blade Show 2022. Blade Show, I think, is one of the coolest places to go. It's like Disneyland for knife people.
It is better than Disneyland, man. It's so much better. That's so much better.
It really is. It's so nuts. It's a cool thing to experience. And honestly, dude, this was a cool thing to experience. Thanks for, you know, being my first, I don't want to call it stream, but I guess kind of collection chat. Right?
Yeah.
We dove into your collection a bit, your tastes, how you developed what you did. I personally find that super interesting. I know it's not going to be for everyone. I know, you know, there's the collection dive that Brent at Backpack B is doing, which, by the way, I got the okay from him to kind of do what I'm doing now.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Not exactly the same thing, but if you've ever watched it's one of my favorite things on YouTube that has ever been done knife-wise. Was checking out people's collections, and like I loved it, and I was like, kind of want to do that, and I kind of want to just have like this chat. So I called it the Fireside Knife Chat, right? So thanks for being a part of episode 1, Mitch, man. Had a fantastic time kind of talking to you. Before we kind of sign off, anything else that we didn't cover again?
I think we covered so much, but I think there's always so much more to cover.
Yeah,
I mean,
there always is, man. There always is.
you know it's a real knife nut, right? Whenever you for some reason don't run out of topics. It's just a
True.
folding piece of steel and titanium. You're like, how can you come up with so much stuff? But there's a lot to it. It's a lot, It's more than
Yeah.
just the materials. And I think it goes back to the whole community thing.
There's the art component to it too,
Yeah.
regardless if you're into the budget or not handmade or handmade, whatever.
Yes.
I think there's that art component. It's one of the oldest tools. I've heard that it's the oldest tool that man has, type thing.
Yeah.
People are always gonna have knives. Like, I grew up, my dad always wanted a knife on him, and like mentioned to me often, you should have a good knife, a solid knife. And I think it's kind of ingrained into us. But I'm glad to have found someone with like interests, right? Like, there's so many people in the community. Easily the best part of this hobby is, you can get a cool knife for sure, but to find a kindred spirit, like you said, that just makes it all the worth.
It's a cool find. It's a cool find. Absolutely. I totally agree.
Thank you for sharing what you shared. Mitch's collection has been insane. If you check out his Instagram, such cool stuff, such cool content, amazing knives. And what you've whittled it down to is truly amazing and premium. I love it, obviously. But man, thank you very much for your time. Your hour and 41 minutes. Anyone that's made it to this long, honestly, you got to comment down below. Like, I am just as crazy. You got to share that, because I need to know, like, are people making it this long? Either way, I thoroughly enjoyed your time.
I think they are. Yeah, absolutely.
But thank you again, Mitch.
Yeah, man.
I'll probably chat with you soon after this. But I'm gonna
do some more. I think these are really cool, and I think honestly, it's nice to know that we're not the only people on this journey. And I think that everyone has their own journey, and everything is right. There's not that much wrong, right? So, like, I like Nick Shabazz's position as well. Where he really likes the budget stuff. And then Dr. Frunke's on the opposite end of that thing, and he likes the really high end stuff. And listen, none of it's right or wrong. All of it is what it is. Just it is what it is. That's the decision. And
it's cool to see like what other people can like.
It is.
And then especially if you take it with that, take it with that component, right? Like, you like what you like. It can be impacted positively, possibly, but don't let it impact you negatively. Like, if you want to collect something and that other person doesn't collect a thing,
it's fine.
Like, we don't have to agree on that type of thing. Like, who cares? So that is probably the biggest thing that I want with this, is to kind of share with people, this is this dude's knife journey. Pretty cool. It's pretty cool to hear it and have it kind of taken down now, right? So
I agree.
Eventually I think this will grow into something different slightly. I'm not going to share that right now. I know I've shared it with you offline. But so for now, I think I'm going to keep this up, the Fireside Knife Chat.
I think it should. Things should happen.
Interesting for people. So
things should happen. That's awesome, man. Awesome talking with you. Great chat. And until next time.
Thank you again. Again. Great getting to just hang out with you.
You too, man. You too. We'll do it again soon.
Yeah, man. Take care, dude.
See you, man. Bye.